Engineer Gold Mines is focused on the exploration and development of the historic high-grade Engineer Gold Mine situated 32 kilometers southwest of Atlan, British Columbia. Engineer Gold Mines is fully permitted for surface and underground exploration with the drill program now underway. Engineer Gold Mines Limited trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol EAU. For more information, please visit us at engineergoldmines.com.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Mark Leibovit, editor and publisher of the Leibovit VR newsletters, also known as VRTrader.com. He's speaking to us from Arizona, which is at the same temperature as Vancouver today. We're both in the high 90s.
Unbelievable, Jim. I guess there's no reason for me to come up there today.
Well, the sailing here is a little better.
Yeah, there's not too much of it in Phoenix, so if you drive a couple hours north, up to Lake Powell and so forth, there's plenty of boats around.
Mark, do you still have a special offer for our listeners?
I do. It's at VRTrader.com, and it's 2021 half off, which gives you 50% off of any of the newsletters. It's a promo code, there's a little space on the order form. So, and I keep being asked this question: is it for any time frame or any subscription? The answer is yes. If you sign up for a year or if you sign up for a month, it's the same deal. So sometimes it's better signing up for the longer subscription to get the benefit of the whole year, but that's up to the client, of course. 2021 half off.
Mark, the official inflation numbers have just been released, and once again over 5%, excluding housing and energy, by the way, and taxes. The last time that we had consecutive over 5% inflation readings was 2008, and we all remember the recession from then. Is this a warning that a recession could be around the corner?
Absolutely, that's the risk, unless we're going to have, there's two things to discuss. Is the stock market going to stay up? That's appreciated in an inflationary environment. And is the plunge protection team and the government going to continue to support the market, knowing that a down market may not be good for political reasons? So, the question is, where are you in this? If you're an individual, middle class or lower, and you're paying taxes, the inflation that's coming is catastrophic to you. If you're wealthy and you have to pay 2 or 3 times for gasoline or for vegetables, it doesn't affect you because you got plenty of money. So the small person is going to really suffer, and inflation is coming, and it is already underway. And as you say, they exclude items from the inflation forecast, which is ridiculous. They've done this for years. Things that affect everybody day to day, like you say, energy. So, and the bill that was passed in Congress, which is horrendous, the $1.3 trillion debt thing, it just makes everybody poorer. Everybody's poorer. Now, you higher taxes, cost of living, and everything. Now, if you're super rich, I guess it doesn't make much difference. And particularly so if you own assets, because assets like gold or real estate, or, whatever, I guess stocks too, they're generating cash flow, will probably appreciate in an inflationary environment. So you probably get wealthier, but the small guys, so to speak, they're definitely, the cost of living is going to go up. The value of the dollar is less. And it's just a terrible, scenario that unfortunately and I don't say this word loosely, the idiots down here who voted in the Democrats, don't understand what they've done. A lot of it was on the pretense that there's going to be freebies. We're going to get stuff for nothing, or you're going to continue to get money sent to you. So the lowest end of society, has voted for them, and maybe the dumbest, so there can be a price to be paid. Of course, the good side of it is they could be voted out, and hopefully they will. Whether they can overturn this type of a $1.3 trillion debt, and I'm sure they're going to try to do more of this stuff, isn't good for the country, isn't good for your pocketbook, isn't good for anybody. So, Hope I answered your question in a roundabout way.
I've heard that the president is proposing raising the capital gains tax from 37 to 57%. Why would anybody invest in anything if you have to give most of the money back?
That's a very good question. Of course, there were times, in fact, it was in the 1950s in the U.S. where the effective tax rate was like 70%. Way up there before Kennedy came in and they lowered the tax rate. There were times in our recent history that there were huge gains. Of course, I guess so much growth has occurred when they did cut the taxes. There'll be ways around it. For example, if you own real estate, I'm a big proponent of that as well. There's a lot of depreciation charges. You can do what's known here in the U.S. as a 1031 exchange, where you can sell your property, flip it into another. There's no tax. And you can just keep doing that ad infinitum until you die, and then your heirs pick it up at the cost basis at the end of your life, not what you paid. So, there's a lot of ways to avoid that. A lot of taxation. I guess if you're invested properly and some strategies. This is why the very rich, people say Donald Trump, is a crook and he doesn't pay his taxes, or Warren Buffett. I mean, these people are following the laws that allow you to take advantage of, delaying or not paying taxes. So, but that gain you're talking about, assuming it even passes, I don't think the stock market's going to like that too much. So maybe if the Democrats want to kill the stock market, I mean, that's one way to do it, I guess, at least create an important correction.
We'll have more with Mark Leibovit right after this.
Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications, patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Mark Leibovit. Just a handful of stocks are propelling the stock market higher and higher. What happens when the so-called FANGs, or the technology stocks that are doing all the heavy lifting, start to peter out?
Well, one already started a little bit. Amazon came down last week or so, had a bit of a correction. I know Netflix has been underperforming. That's one of the big ones in the NASDAQ 100. Apple seems still want to go up. Tesla seems to be holding. You're right. It's a handful of names. And I think those handful of names account for the large percentage gains in the index, where most stocks in the index have not performed, have underperformed. So it's a divergence, and it is something to be concerned about if you're a market technician. If a handful of stocks are running the entire market, and the question is how long can they do that? And, it doesn't last forever. I mean, back in the 1960s, 70s, you had the Nifty 50. Names like Xerox and Polaroid, stuff like that, and, they went the way of the dodo. So I think what happens is the leaders are not always the leaders, Jim. New technology, I think even Bezos said Amazon's not going to be around forever. There's going to be competition. I think he made some comment. I think you would even mention that. So the big guys know that the Apples and the Amazons, other technology, other competitors are going to show up. These guys are not going to be where they are now in years to come. This has always been the case. All the leaders disappear. That doesn't mean the new leaders are going to keep the indexes up the way the old leaders did. That's an important question too. But I'm not happy about it. I mean, most of the market isn't participating. It's the high flyers that are doing it. That's a reason for concern. So I am concerned that we're going to get a market shakeout, whether it's next year or to the end of this year, whether it's higher taxes or some outlier event, or we'll see. I mean, the weight of gravity is ultimately going to take hold.
I know we like to mention geocosmic events. We had the Perseid meteor shower. Has that had any effect on the markets?
Well, I can't, other than watching it, I can't say that it has. I don't think the Perseid is a important geocosmic event. I would be more concerned about solar flares or, the passage of some theoretical planet that's supposed to have been out there that Shitten had written about years ago. This book, got the name of the book. You probably remember the name of the book. The something planet that's supposedly out there in the solar system that passes every 3,600 years, and whether that's true or not, you read his work. It's based on ancient Babylonian scriptures and stuff. That apparently this happened several thousand years ago. So things like that. Of course, an asteroid effect, and of course there's something going on. We know that. The heat wave in Vancouver, the fires, the increase in volcanic activity. I had a picture the other day. I saw Greenland. All the ice that's melting up there. Talk about a possible polar shift or minor polar shift. There's a lot of things that are happening that are not overly reported, let's say, at all, that are out there on a planetary basis that obviously can affect us. So. It's not talked about. They're more concerned about whether, minorities have more rights or we're allowed to say certain things versus saying other things, or whether we spend money on these great government programs. And, there's all kinds of other dialogue out there besides the geocosmic world, because obviously some asteroid flies by us, and hits the Earth, nothing else matters. You know what I mean? So we're not going to hear much discussion about that kind of stuff. But Perseid, I don't think it had much of an effect. It was nice to watch. It is nice to watch. But as you know, I look at everything. Started for me decades ago, just looking around, watching the correlation with lunar cycles and the markets, and luckily meeting a lot of extraordinary people that look at things that are just not talked about on the financial news that do affect us directly or indirectly. We see commodity prices going up. It's not only inflation, there's actually shortages out there. Probably with a big crop shortage with coffee, which drove prices higher recently. So, there's stuff going on, and, it affects us, but it's not always talked about. So I'm always watching this stuff. I have no control over it. I may be making more of it than I should, but ultimately, we're going to pay the price for it, and the markets are going to respond.
What's going on with gold right now? It seems like it's fallen asleep.
That's been this for the last several months, and I'm probably one of the only bears out there, and I don't make a lot of friends because of that. Back in February, I mentioned you could see 1,500 before you saw 3,000. That's a big picture comment. Then we had a big shakeout down to 1660, 1670. We rallied back into the mid-1800s. Now we got back into the mid-1700s. I'm telling you, I don't know. Maybe the dollar is just going to continue to rally, or there's some great new supply of gold. I remember we got this nasty email from someone when I mentioned on the air that we could be mining gold from asteroids. So, we may already be up there doing it. I'm a big believer in the secret space program, that we have stuff going on beyond the planet that no one's talking about. They talk about Elon Musk and going to Mars, but I think we're well beyond that already. We're just not told what secret programs are underway or what technology we really have. But getting back to the gold, maybe we're mining gold on an asteroid, bringing it back, and it's being sold and helping fund the space program and other secret programs. There were drug operations, back in the 70s, bringing drugs in, government drug programs to fund secret programs. It was legal for the government, but not for anyone else. There's all kinds of fun stuff going on out there. So gold's under pressure. The chart looks terrible. I would be surprised if gold got down to 1,300, 1,400 or so in the next several months. And silver I mentioned this last week or the week before, silver $19 or lower. And, what's actually causing it is a big question. Is it strength in the dollar? Is it mining operations bringing in supply that we don't know about. The infatuation with cryptocurrency as an alternative investment to gold and silver, which has been big winners for a lot of people. There's a lot of variables out there. So I'm not saying gold can't ever go up again. It may not be 3,000 or some number in the future, but right now it looks to me like a correction.
Our condolences to the family and friends of Paul Hellyer, a longtime Canadian politician and cabinet minister. You had a particular interest about Paul Hellyer and what he told us about possible aliens visiting Earth and so on. What are your thoughts?
I brought this up 2-3 times at the World Outlook Conference in Vancouver. I mentioned his name, and it's a reference to the extraterrestrial thing, and people giggle and laugh, and the fact that they giggle and laugh and don't believe it makes me more of a believer than ever. He was a former defense minister of Canada. He had information from other military people, not only in the U.S. I listened to his presentations. I've listened to him for the years. Unfortunately, he just said he just passed away the last few days. Came out back in the 90s and made very strong statements that the extraterrestrials are on Earth, that we do business with them, we have deals with them, or treaties with them. There's stories that go back to Dwight Eisenhower signing treaties back in the early 1960s. We have so much going on, and I listen to his interviews, and it's scary because if even though part of it is true, it makes me very angry that information like that's being withheld from us. I mean, imagine, all these listeners listening to the show, so this guy must be crazy. No, I'm not crazy, because some really reputable people have come out and stuck their reputations out there to say there's something going on here, and there's been a lot of release of secret documents under the Freedom of Information Act that actually shows that there were meetings with extraterrestrials, and they whited out or blacked out certain key lines, so that there was something that happened. Paul Hellyer was a spokesman. He's obviously influenced me a lot because I met him, listened to his presentation, and he had access to some information that we're just not being told about, and or intentionally not being told about. So Paul was a great ally to those who are trying to expose the truth. So, just think about it. I mean, imagine if some of the stuff he says is really true, and stuff that I've seen and read. What's the planetary scientist name that made the presentation of the United Nations in 1986? I feel really dumb here on the air that his name just slipped my tongue. I heard his presentation. I think it was 1986, 87, United Nations, showing pictures of craft leaving the Earth. I mean, they actually gave him a slot at the United Nations for this. And hopefully next week I can look up the name for you. But bottom line is, you see pictures of this craft leaving the Earth, going extraordinary speeds. He claimed that they were not necessarily extraterrestrial, but they could be things that we had developed that literally in minutes could be on the moon. I mean, that leaving the Earth, and he tracked them, and he presented it to the United Nations. I mean, so I think what's happened is, and you talk to somebody who's been reading about this and looking at this for decades. We reverse engineered some advanced technology. I don't think we created all of it. You could say it wasn't extraterrestrial. Some people would think we reversed Roswell and other type of technology, but I'm pretty sure, what's his name, Richard Bigelow's got that operation in Las Vegas, and he admitted on interviews that extraterrestrials exist. He's got government contracts doing secret military, technology, aircraft type stuff. You look up Bigelow, some of the comments he's made, and he's got a big operation in Las Vegas. Bottom line is that, we've got some advanced craft up there, beyond anything that, Elon Musk is showing us, or Branson is showing us, or Bezos is showing us, and they take off in these rockets, and they come down, and they look like heroes, and whatever. These are distractions from what's really happening. And what's really happening, in my opinion, putting all the pieces together for all these years, is that we've got advanced technology. We're already on Mars. We've been on Mars for decades. We're on the moon. We have bases on the moon where we could be mining these asteroids, bringing back minerals and stuff, that rare earths and gold and who knows what. And, we're doing a lot of stuff. And we may be in touch with extraterrestrials in the process. If you don't want to go that route, I think we are, but if you don't, I think we have a federation that's in existence, just like you see in Star Trek. And I think that's gone on, and it's all super secret. And it's too many pieces out there, and as you always say, there's a seed of truth in some of these stories, and some could be made up, but I think there's a strong seed of truth here, and there's so much research supporting that. So I'm going to conclude with something which we really don't talk about, and we're probably running out of time. But my feeling is, and I'm saying this on the air, that the entire COVID crisis, probably everyone's going to hang up when they hear this one, this entire COVID disease that we've been exposed to and dealing with the vaccines and the whatever is all related to a cover-up related to extraterrestrial activity. There's something going on that we needed to be distracted from. And whether it was a planetary invasion or whether there was some other issue going on that we needed to be distracted from and brought under control, the virus was released and may continue to be released until we're under control. And there's been stories for decades about, like the Cold War between the Soviet Union and the U.S. never really existed. We had been working together and continue to work together on super science, spacecraft, and exploring the universe and doing all kinds of unbelievable things. And the Cold War was sort of created to distract us from the bigger story, was that we're really working together on super projects in the universe, which may have these alien connections or our bases on other planets. And all kinds of cool stuff's been going on, and we're distracted intentionally to get us off the subject because they don't want the masses to really understand or know we have this stuff. So I think this COVID thing is going to continue as long as we have some kind of issue with the Geocosmic, with those out there that we are working with or maybe not working with very well. And even Paul Hellyer talks about it. If you listen to his interviews, about there's some good races and some bad races. Some are friendly to the planet Earth, and some are destructive. And maybe some of the destructive forces got out of hand, Jim. Something could have gone on. So we had to do something to get the world population under control or vaccinated or something related to this. And that's sort of the conclusion. When I first heard the COVID when it started, I said, it's an extraterrestrial event. They're trying to cover it up. And how do they get everybody in their homes with masks and get people, regimented and create a military state? I mean, imagine if we were actually being invaded from another planet. I mean, that's far-fetched. I don't think, my understanding is that's not what would happen, because I think they understand we have to cooperate. Even those from the other worlds that are here on Earth and have been on Earth for many thousands of years, but it's not just recent activity. You go back and look at paintings in the Middle Ages showing aircraft in the sky, look like flying saucers in the sky. All this stuff's documented. If you don't believe me, you can go to the History Channel on Saturday nights and just watch some of the evidence they present. It's a show called Ancient Aliens, talking about the ancient history of the planet and our cultures and what they observed well before the 20th and 21st century. But all this is, basically a plan of some kind, and we're being lied to. So that's what I think it's all about. Doesn't mean you can't get sick. Doesn't mean there's not a virus really out there. Just means that we've been brought under control for some greater reason. And someone will say, well, that's ridiculous, Mark. This is only because the Democrats want to create more control, and they wanted to raise taxes, and they want to do the financial reset of the planet, and reset the currency and price gold in terms of the currency so we can get higher gold prices, and it's all political, financial manipulation. That's why COVID came about. And that may also be the case. But I think there's something more sinister than that behind it all. And I hope I'm wrong, but my readings of history and what's happened with Paul Hellyer and others have talked about over the decades means that we're trying to avoid telling everybody what's really happening in the extraterrestrial world, and they're afraid how it would impact religion, how it would impact politics, and the fear is great, and they want to keep it under control. And I don't know if they'll ever release the truth. I don't know if they'll ever do it because they're too fearful. Because I don't think you're going to see a scene like From Day the Earth Stood Still, 1953, where Michael Rennie comes out of a ship in Washington, D.C. and says, I'm here with my robot friend Gort, and we're here to warn you, Earthlings, that unless you stop exploding atomic bombs and doing what you need to do, we're going to have to take you out because you're a threat to the rest of the universe. I don't think you're going to see that, but maybe something close to that is happening, and we need it to be handled. We need it to be wrangled in a little bit, taken under the wings of government. So the whole idea of world government and all this, that sure sounds like something that would be spawned by an extraterrestrial threat. You know what I mean? So we'll find out. Maybe we won't find out in our time, but I think I know the answer, and I've seen enough and heard enough and interviewed enough people and met enough people I'm talking over 50 years. And my brother's in the film business. He was going to try to do a film, like 20 years ago. He was told not to do it. It was called, it was going to be called Alien Bases on the Moon. It was supposed to be a documentary or a film about what was going on the moon. And, he was talked out of the project, I think maybe because, they didn't want that information out. There was a book actually in the 70s, I think, that came out, showed pictures of strange objects on the moon. And you can see those today if you research on the internet. There's these objects on the moon that are obviously made by advanced civilization, not natural formation. So we see these on Mars as well. So it's interesting stuff, Jim. I'm way too long-winded here, but a lot of fun stuff. How do we make money with the stock market? Well, you just got to trade the market and do your own investing and sort of tune this other stuff out. But if you feel like you need to get to the potential truth and uncover some interesting stories, this is the route to go. So I would encourage everyone to search the internet, look up Paul Hellyer. I'm glad you brought up the subject, and listen to some of his interviews and what he has to say. But he was a Canadian defense minister, and he wasn't nobody, and I think he was privy to some information which unfortunately would scare most people to death. But,
Paul wrote a book. Paul wrote a book called Light at the End of the Tunnel, A Survival Plan for the Human Species. It's endorsed by Apollo 14 astronaut Edgar Mitchell. He said it finds that it's necessary for all countries, races, faiths, and colors to drop their antagonisms and to work together in a common purpose to save the heritage they have in common. So, a little message from the book.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's a whole other, we could talk about that some other time. The astronauts have seen stuff that they're not supposed to tell us. That they saw stuff on the moon and other places that was silent, and unfortunately, there's a lot of editing going on here and silencing. Just as our freedom of speech now is being curtailed by the media and by those who disagree with us. This has been going on for, centuries by governments everywhere. So now whether it applies to this subject as others. So anyway, this is fun. This is what gets me up in the morning besides the stock market. I don't know if we'll see all the truth, but I tell you, if I get one of those spaceships and go to the moon and search around, and I thought I could live through it, I'm 73 years old, but it certainly would be a final last, exploration or thrill in my life, to actually see the stuff that I think is really there. But we'll find out. Thank you for the time.
Mark, thank you so much for chatting with us.
I hope you enjoyed it. Take care.
My guest has been Mark Leibovit, editor and publisher of the Leibovit VR newsletters, also known as VRtrader.com. He was speaking to us from Arizona. If you have any questions for Mark or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com, and we'll ask that question for you. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Find us on Twitter at House Street. We're also on Facebook. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of House Street Media Incorporated.